This week in post, get the best foreground and the best background by blending exposures. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. If this is your first time tuning in, thanks for joining me. Real quick about what this is all about is walk through the post-processing of a photo and talk about the why behind a particular choice or technique and what something unique that made the processing for that photo, so that you can file this away and build up your photographic toolbox for post-processing your own images. So this week, looking at blending exposures from a sunset shoot. And so sometimes you're out shooting and you don't get the best light in the foreground and the background at the same time. Maybe it has to do with how the land is shaped, maybe it has to do with the angle of the sun at that time of year, whatever it might be. And so a technique you can do is, while you're shooting, take many exposures of the same composition all during a sunset. And if you haven't checked out the In the Field episode that I talk about that, have a look at it. It's just earlier in the list of videos, or I'll put a card here on YouTube. You can click over to it. And so what we'll do now is take a couple of those photos from that shoot, blend them together, and then add some stylization. In Lightroom, I have two photos. The one on the left was taken before the sun went down. The cliffs are lit up very nicely. And the one on the right has this wonderful sky. So I'm going to blend these two together to make that composite, beautiful sunset of just nice light everywhere. Nice light in the foreground, nice light in the background. Did some initial adjustments in Lightroom on each one of these photos. Slight rotation to square off the horizon, make that nice and flat. And went through the basic things. Not too much different than my other videos, so I won't spend a lot of time on them here. And I noticed a few distractions here as well, like this little thing over on the side, and there's a ship going through on the horizon there. Those aren't adding to the photo, so I'll take care of those in layers using the erasing tools. Actually, this little rainbow right here, the lens flare, I don't want that. I mean, I definitely want this starburst here, but that little guy, I can go away. And then the focus of these adjustments is the foreground. I don't care what's happening as much in the sky, because I know I'm going to replace that. So really paid attention to the foreground area. Moving to the second image, you'll notice these adjustments are different than what we saw previously, because I'm watching the sky for these adjustments. That's what matters here. This is all dark and it's not very pleasing, and that's fine. This is going to be the piece of this photo that I want to use in the composite. So is all basic panel stuff, nothing else, maybe dust spot removal. Let's go grab these two photos and bring them into Lightroom. So we'll go back to the grid, select those, and since I want them to be in the same document, I'll go to File, Plug in Extras, and then Open as Layers in Layers 10. So here the two photos are in layers. On the top layer, I have the sky image, and on the bottom layer, I've got the nice cliffs. So if I turn off this top layer, you can see the sky is going to its old self, and I have a nice foreground here. That's great. And the masking job was reasonably straightforward. Here's the ending mask, and it looks complex, but it's really not all that bad. Let me reset the mask and show you the basics of what I did to create it. So here's the layout. I've got the darker photo, good sky on the top here. So I just grabbed masking bug and dropped it right about on the horizon. Wait for that to catch up. There we go. Of course, I need to flip it around so that I'm getting most of my foreground. That's nice, and I've got the sky on the top there. And play around with the feather, but you can see the mask-wise, this is kind of what we're looking like. Maybe raise that up just a little bit so my fade starts into the horizon. And then the rest was using masking brush. Opacity of 100% is going to be too much for this. I'm going to bring this down first to about 80 and work on the cliffs. Turn on the perfect brush and start to bring back in some of the cliffs there. Check that, see that? So you can see I'm bringing those cliff faces back in, which means I'm revealing what's on this lower layer. That's what has the nice coloring on the cliff faces. And I can make a few sweeps through here. The only reason I'm not using a full strength is I don't want this edge of this transition to be very harsh. Now, once finished with that, the other thing that right now does not look natural is I have this wonderful, beautiful orange-looking clouds in the sky, and they're not reflecting in the water. That doesn't make sense, right? So, again, if I were to reset this mask, you can see in the point where we had the sunset, we have this nice reflection there. So we want to bring that back. Control Z, undo. Command Z on a Mac. And let's now, this is where I'll take this opacity way down to about maybe 25 or 20 or so. I'll have to do a lot of strokes for this, and that's okay. But then start to bring back in some of this reflection coloring. And this is just, you know, taking your time and working your way through. Check the mask again. You can start to see, oh, I forgot to turn off the perfect brush. That's why I'm having so much challenge there. All right, so start to bring more of this in. Actually, I need to be paint in. That might help me better. And so on and so on and so on. And just kind of slowly working your way through here until you start bringing in the amount of reflection that looks good. And in the end, save a little time in the video, I will paste my final mask. And so you can see I brought in some of that shadowing through here, did a little bit of masking work around the starburst itself, but it was just doing that, just kind of sweeping the brush through here, bringing back some of that reflective color from the sky. With the masking done, so this looks good now, took these two and did a new stamped layer, and that's what we have here. And of course, I've already done the stylization. We'll walk through that in a minute, but I'll turn that back on. You can also see if I turn off and turn on, you can see a few distractions removed here, here, that little rainbow we talked about. And so, you know, those got cleaned up. Also took away the people there. I left one person down here on the beach, giving a very observant person a sense of scale. So let's bring this now into effects, and I'll show you the stylization. All right, so 4 filters, not a whole ton of change here. Let's start in dynamic contrast. Open that up, and you can see that we're using the natural setting, and the only thing special for this is the mask. Control M to show you the mask. I'm removing some of the effect from this area here, and the way that I did that, and I recognize that it's a little sloppy on the edges, and I'm okay with that, but the way I did that was using a line mask. I just took the line mask, increased the feather to, I think, about 10 or 12 or so. That's where I get this weird fade at the edge, and just started clicking points all around this to kind of make a rough shape along the coastline, and then drag it up for the rest of the sky. And actually, I could certainly clean this up, and that might be a good thing for me to do just on the edges here. Whoops. I didn't want to do it at 100%, maybe about 50 or 60, something like that. And just to clean up those edges there so it doesn't look strange. Not really noticeable because there's not a lot of detail on those spots. But that's how I made that mask, is using the line mask. That's a nice little trick, and I've got separate videos on how to go do that. So that's dynamic contrast. So we're bringing out nice texture in the cliffs, but keeping the background of the water a little softer. I don't want those as harsh. Color enhancer. Let's bring that open. And you're going to see a nice boost in the sunset, sunset cliffs after all. Let the enhancer do its thing with auto. Switch the aquas more toward blues and increase saturation and brought down brightness. That was to bring back some of the blue tones here. And I always like that play of the darker blue against the orangey pinks. Let's see, other changes. Red channel, slightly saturated. Orange channel, very slightly saturated. To be careful with reds and orange, they can oversaturate very, very quickly. Yellow's flat, green is probably flat as well because there's not a lot of green in this photo. And did I do anything with the deep blues? Probably pumped those over. Yeah, same type of thing. Brought brightness down to getting a little more color into that blue in the sky. And probably nothing with purple. Nope, that's flat. So that's our color enhancer. Main things here was to pop a bit of saturation in the reds and oranges and really work the blues in the sky, so those came back. Now, photo filter, this is one that I played around with a bit because I wanted to give a little more richness to the scene, a little more twilight feel to the scene. So, solid photo filter using just the dark blue that comes standard, and played with the strength and the polarization settings. Dropped the opacity quite a bit because at 100%, I'll show you, it became, whoops, there we go. It became really, really blue. It was too much. So I'm going to undo that. But I also have a mask on this as well. Show you the mask on that, Control M. And actually, it's a gradient. I don't even need the Control M. It shows up very nicely here. It's to protect the foreground. I wanted a little more of this is evening, it's twilight, it's dusk, it's, the sky's getting darker feel to it. And so letting the photo filter be applied to the upper part of the scene the most, and then letting it fade off for the bottom part of the scene. And this was a result of experimentation, playing around with the sliders, strength, saturation, opacity, until I got something that I liked. And this is where we ended up. And last but not least, a vignette, just to draw the eye in a little more toward the center. I have a separate video on how I approach vignettes on my On-One Learning Center. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know how I do these. So did a bunch of work with the sliders, ended up with a very slight vignette to draw everything in. So stylization-wise, this is before, and then that is our final image. So the tip of the week is to craft that version of your reality by blending exposures. And depending on where you fall on the scale of post-processing, this may not be something you're comfortable with. If you prefer to be very, very true to a scene and only take what the camera captured in a given shot, that's fine. It's totally fine. This technique would not be for you. If you're a photojournalist, or doing something with street or something that's supposed to be documentarian in nature, this is not the thing to do. But for artistic expressions, like at least my style of work, I'm totally comfortable with doing this. It more is how I remember the location that day. I remember nice golden light on the cliff faces. I remember the brilliant sky, and putting all those together, it feels fine to me. And so blending exposures is a great way to do that. And that does it for this week in post. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got a question about post-processing or anything photography related, feel free to contact me through my website. Comments on the video are great. Tell a friend. I love to see the audience growing. It's encouragement to me to come back another week and do another set of videos. So until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.